All right. We haven't met yet. My name is Adrian. I live in Phoenix, and I've been the program director for Solar United Neighbors for about a year now. I oversee all of our co-op programming throughout the state of Arizona, in addition to the policy and advocacy side of things. So you may see me at the Corporation Commission, at the state legislature, probably calling my senators some days. So there's a lot of fun policy work that we get to do, in addition to helping all of you lovely people install solar panels. I love solar. I love this work because I've seen the impact that it has on real people's lives, and really a transformational effect, especially for people experiencing extremely high electricity bills, especially in the valley in the summer where I live. I've seen how solar can provide some breathing room to people and a little extra peace of mind as well. Solar brings us energy independence. It's one of the few choices we have other than our utility for a supply of electricity. We don't have a lot of options for electricity. Solar is one of the few other choices. Especially in Arizona, solar is a huge water saver, and that's something that doesn't get talked enough about. Coal, gas, nuclear all use a lot of water to generate electricity. Solar uses next to no water, and I think that's really important to remember as we're thinking about the myriad benefits that solar brings to our communities. So a couple other housekeeping pieces. For the folks on Zoom, we are in a webinar mode, so I can't see you or hear you. If you have questions, please drop those into the chat. My colleague Trinity is on the line, and they will be answering those questions as we go. I'll also be taking a pause in between each section to answer any questions on Zoom or from the room. This webinar is going to be recorded. If you had a friend who couldn't make it tonight, they'll be able to watch a recording of it afterwards. Before we get into the meat of the presentation, I really want to start by thanking our partners. Sun will never do a co-op unless we have local community partners who are willing and able to help us with the program. Our co-op partners help us plan the co-op. They help us plan events like this. They help with media requests, and they help us build trust and gain confidence with local community members. This is our third round of the Northern Arizona Co-op, so I'm really thankful to be able to partner with the City of Flagstaff, City of Sedona, and Coconino County for the third time in a row. With that, I would love to hand it over to Danae to talk a little bit about why Flagstaff is partnering with Sun.
All right, are we having a good time? Woo! I'm here. Woo! All right. I wish more meetings could be like this, like hanging out with cool people in a really cool place, talking about really impactful solutions. Unfortunately, not all of our meetings get to happen like this, but wonderful to be here with you all tonight. As Adrian mentioned, my name is Danae Pressler. I'm with the Flagstaff Sustainability Office, and it is our third time partnering with Solar United Neighbors to provide free education on going solar, as well as an opportunity to make it a little bit more convenient and affordable for our residents and small business owners to go solar through the co-op if they choose to. The City of Flagstaff has a carbon neutrality plan many of you are familiar with. And in that plan, we have set out a goal to be carbon neutral by 2030. And one of our key strategies to that is more renewable energy. And in fact, we're looking at 2,000 more homes going solar in order to help us reach that goal. This co-op, just in the last two rounds, we've had 117 Flagstaff residents. And I don't think we've had any small businesses yet. So this is your chance, if you're a small business owner, to be our first in Flagstaff through the co-op. But this is a really wonderful opportunity. We're pleased to be a partner in it. And my ask for any of you tonight is to please invite your friends and family and neighbors to participate in this too, if they have an interest in going solar, because we do need to expand this, and the word of voice is the most impactful way to do that.
Thank you so much. All right, we are privileged to also have somebody from City of Sedona, or yeah, that's the City of Flagstaff. I'm sorry to not change my tag.
I didn't even notice. Set it up before.
I got the right logo.
Yeah, you got the logo. Hi, everybody. My name's Zach Schwartz. I'm with the City of Sedona. I'm one of the sustainability coordinators for the city in our sustainability department. Danae pretty much covered almost everything I was going to say, so I'll be pretty brief, but we're just really happy to be partnering on this again for another year. It's great to have educate and encourage all of our residents to try and get involved in this type of co-op, for anybody who wants to go solar, this is a great opportunity to do that, and a great way to lower the cost of that as well. So similar to Flagstaff, the city of Sedona also has a climate action plan with pretty ambitious goals as well. One of the action items in our climate action plan is to do just this, which is provide incentives, means a good realistic route for our residents to go solar and to have renewable energy powering their homes. So with that, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Appreciate you both joining us tonight.
Of course.
So if you're new to all of this, Solar United Neighbors, we are a national nonprofit organization. We're active in 12 states as well as Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C. And we are a vendor neutral organization. So we are not a solar installer ourselves. We're vendor neutral, we're financer neutral. Our aim is really to equip you all with the tools that you need to feel confident about going solar. We focus on consumer advocacy, solar education, and outreach in the community. And one of the cool things about Sun is there's not a lot of organizations that do free solar education. Obviously, if you have questions about solar, you can talk to an installer or a company who wants to sell you something. But we just want to educate you all. And I think that's a really unique position. There's hardly any other organizations that do that in Arizona. So I feel really blessed to be able to be in this position tonight. Our vision and our mission is to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. And this work started back in 2007 on this very blurry picture. You'll see our founder, Anya Schoolman, with her son, Walter, and his friend, Diego. Walter and Diego, in 2007, they saw An Inconvenient Truth, which is a movie about climate change. It really worried them, and they rushed home and said, "Mom, we have to do something. We need to do our part. Can we go solar?" Anya looked into it and quickly found out that going solar was not such an easy process, especially in 2007. They were getting different information from different companies. There were tax credits and leases and power purchase agreements to figure out and understand. And it's just a really complicated process overall. They really felt like there was a lack of front-facing, easy to understand consumer information about solar. So as Anya and her family started to look into going solar, they said, hey, we may as well loop in some of our neighbors. We should be untangling this process together. And if we all go solar, maybe we can even get a discount. So Walter and his friend Diego, they went door to door, enlisted the help of 50 of their neighbors. They looked over sales documents, they got bids, and they untangled this complicated solar process together. In the end, 45 of those families ended up installing solar, and that was really sort of the first co-op. Ever since then, Anya started getting calls from other neighborhoods in DC and soon from other states, and we've been doing this sort of work ever since. Since 2007, we've now helped more than 8,000 families install solar panels in the 12 states that we work in. All together, that's more than 74 megawatts of solar on the grid. And that's helped to save almost 1 million tons of CO2. Sun has been, I'm gonna see if I can hide this a little bit. That's kind of annoying. I don't know if that's better, but Sun has been in Arizona since 2019. And in that time, we've been able to help more than 500 people install solar panels. Just in the state, that's more than 4 megawatts of total capacity. Our members have invested more than $12 million on their solar panels, and we project they're going to save more than $22 million altogether over the lifespan of those systems. All of this activity and sales has contributed to more than 74 jobs in the industry right here in the state of Arizona. And we estimate has offset almost 60,000 metric tons of CO2, which we know is very important to some of our municipal partners as well. And this is our 15th co-op in the state of Arizona since 2019. It's pretty wild that we've done that many already. As you can see, we've hit the valley several times over the years. We've done 3 in Tucson, and this is our 3rd in northern Arizona. We also had a very small co-op in Portal, Arizona, which is right on the border with Rodeo, New Mexico. And for the first time, we had a Quad Cities co-op this year, open to residents of Prescott and surrounding areas, which was very, very successful. I'm really excited about that. So, like I said, our mission, we want to help people go solar, join together, and fight for their energy rights. So we help lots of people go solar through the co-op like this, but also individually. And that includes homeowners, small businesses, churches, nonprofits, schools, a list that is only continuing to grow, it seems like. And then we bring people together at an event like this, our solar co-ops. We have happy hours, lobbying days. We provide resources for solar owners to effectively advocate for their rights. And when we talk about energy rights or solar rights, that covers policies like fair credits for solar to make sure that we're compensated at a fair rate that we should be. Community solar, so that one day renters can benefit from solar in Arizona. Making sure HOA members aren't restricted from installing rooftop solar. So we help people go solar, and then we hope that they'll join us in the fight to make it easier for their neighbors to also go solar. And this is sort of our theory of change. Today, we're going to be going over the basics of solar technology. It is a solar 101, so I'm not going to be going too in depth. Solar economics will also cover financing, pricing, tax credits. And then the last section is just a few short slides on how the co-op model works in particular. I'm going to take a break in between each of these sections. If anybody in the room has questions, folks on Zoom, if you have questions, drop them in the chat as we go, or I could answer those in between the breaks as well. Start with solar technology. So how do solar panels work? You may be asking yourself. The short answer is magic, or at least that's what it feels like still to me. But in reality, when we're talking about solar tonight, we're talking about solar photovoltaics or PV cells. Solar photovoltaics are made up of semiconductor materials, mostly silicon, but some other things in there as well. And then when photons from sunlight hit those cells, it dislodges the electrons in that material, which creates a flow of electricity. Each solar panel, solar hot water heating and solar thermal technology are also available. They still exist today, but the vast majority of the market is PV solar, which are the cells that you see up on rooftops. So when we're talking about solar tonight, that's what we're talking about. Each panel is made up of about 60 to 70 cells, depending on the size of the panel. I've got one right here. And they're sort of sandwiched in between two glass frames that are very, very sturdy glass wrapped in a casing. The panels are fairly large, usually about 6 feet by 3.5 feet, depending on the brand. So you definitely need a decent amount of space on your roof. Solar panel could also be referred to as a module. And then when you put several solar panels together, we may refer to that as a solar array. And then to talk a little bit about how the system gets attached to your roof. What you need to know as a consumer is that there's generally a racking solution for most types of roofs. Pictured here is sort of a typical asphalt shingle roof where the rails are screwed onto your roof and then the panels are going to be clipped onto those beams. But if you have a metal roof or a flat roof, they might need to do something a little different. Your installer may ballast the panels down, which essentially just means weighing them down. Or depending on your roof, sometimes they'll use a pitch pocket system, which is going to angle those panels upright a little bit so they're at the optimal angle to absorb the most amount of sunlight and electricity. And then I know some people, especially in this area, are interested in ground-mounted solar. This can absolutely be an option and something you can consider through the co-op. This is definitely something more considered by people who don't have a good roof to go solar. Maybe it's too small, it's too obstructed, or there's lots of shading. Key thing though is you definitely need enough space on your property to be able to handle ground-mounted solar. Ground-mounted solar is also almost always more expensive than rooftop solar because you've got to build that system that hooks it onto the ground. There may be some trenching and wiring depending on how far away it is. So there's a variety of fixed costs associated with ground-mounted solar that usually makes it a bit more expensive. So we usually tell people if you can go rooftop, that's the best option for you. But for farmers, for people in rural area who have lots of land, ground-mounted solar is definitely worth looking into. And then you will need an inverter to take that direct current DC energy from your solar panels, invert it into AC alternating current. So your homes and the appliances in your home can use that electricity. There are essentially two main types of inverters. A string inverter will string all of your panels together through one central panel and through one central box. They work really well for simple installations where there's maybe just one or two simple arrays and not a lot of shade. Microinverters are doing the same thing, but just on the individual panel level. Microinverters can improve the overall efficiency of your system by reducing power losses caused by shading or other factors. Sometimes microinverters are preferred for more complex installations or if there's lots of shade, for example. You don't need to know, I definitely need this type of inverter or I want this type of inverter. Your installer is going to have a recommendation based off of the type of solar installation, and they'll be able to walk you through those options. And if you really want to dig into the nitty gritty, we would love to talk about inverters with you. And then you'll need an electrical panel to connect the solar to your home. It's usually a pretty simple connection to connect to solar panels. Most homes don't need an upgrade, but some definitely will, especially older homes, in order to handle solar. We always ask installers when they bid on our co-op, what is the price of an electrical panel upgrade? Because that's really helpful information for the consumers to have going into it, because that can be a costly expense if you need that. One note, the Inflation Reduction Act includes a variety of things, but one of them are tax credits and rebates for an electrical panel upgrade if you need that in order to upgrade to solar. It just does depend on your income level, but just keep that in mind. If you need an upgrade, there may be some incentives to help you pay for that. And then just to clarify some terminology that we'll be talking about tonight. A kilowatt is a unit of power. It's used to describe the size of a system in 1,000-watt increments. So 1,000 watts is 1 kilowatt. So a system like pictured on the screen here with 10 400-watt panels, we call that a 4.8 kilowatt solar array, or 4,800 kilowatts. Kilowatt hours are used, that's a unit of energy. So that's used to describe the amount of electricity flowing to and from you, the customer. Kilowatt hours are what you see on your electricity bill. So it's used to measure the amount of electricity you consume or generate. In Arizona, the average system size for rooftop solar is somewhere between 6 and 7 kilowatts. We've been seeing that go up a little bit recently, I think, as folks are starting to add on electric vehicles and electric stoves and other appliances, but still usually around 7 kilowatts is kind of the typical size we tend to see in the state. So just to fit everything all together, you've got your shiny, beautiful new solar panels up on your roof or on your ground-mounted system. They are absorbing sunlight and those photons from sunlight, creating a flow of electricity. Everything's flowing through your solar inverter, which is going to invert that current from DC to AC. And then your electrical panel, I kind of think of as the brains of the whole operation. It's directing power where it needs to go, when it needs to go. And then solar owners will have a bidirectional utility meter. So APS can not only measure how much electricity you're consuming, they'll also be able to measure how much excess solar you feed back onto the grid that they will then credit you for. So what is net metering? You've probably heard about it before. Net metering really has been the #1 incentive, the biggest driver of rooftop solar in this country that really brought solar to where it is today. With true net metering, it would have tracked the flow of electricity to and from you, the customer. And whenever you're generating more electricity with your solar panels than you're using, that amount of electricity is going to be credited back to your bill at the same rate that you're paying for electricity. So it used to be a 1-to-1 credit, meaning if APS is charging me 9 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity, I send them a kilowatt hour of solar back, they'll just credit me that exact same amount. Unfortunately, due to a variety of reasons that I would love to talk to you about if you're interested, this system has been weakened and cut down and chipped down in the state of Arizona. You're still credited for excess solar production that you feed back to the grid, but it's something now called the resource comparison proxy, which is about the sexiest name you can think of. For short, we call it the export rate or export rate credits. So basically, instead of a 1-to-1 credit that you would have gotten with net metering, the utilities are setting a flat rate that they'll credit you per kilowatt hour for any excess solar generation. And unfortunately, that does step down each year historically. So today, if you go solar and you are producing a lot of power that your home isn't using, it's going to go back onto the grid and APS will credit you for it, but just at a lower rate than they would have with net metering. Does that make sense? I know this is a little bit of a complicated topic.
Do you know what the current rate is?
Yes, it's 7 something cents, and I have a slide on it. There it is. Yeah, so for the folks on Zoom, somebody asked, is there any hope of increasing the solar export rate credit? So When I said earlier that Sun fights for solar rights and energy rights, this is the exact type of thing that I'm talking about. At Sun, we believe that you should be credited fairly and accurately for the benefits of all that power that you're putting back out on the grid. Frankly, 7 cents is not enough for the value of that electricity. So at Solar United Neighbors, we are very heavily involved at the Corporation Commission, which is where these things are decided. We were not operating in Arizona when net metering originally went away in 2017. We didn't start till 2019. But what we do every year is go up to the Corporation Commission and argue against this step down. It should not be stepped down. It should not be reduced. In fact, it should be the opposite. And that is, by the way, just a quick aside, our most powerful organizing tool for those policy fights is you all, and especially people who've already gone solar. It's one thing for me to go to the Corporation Commission and argue these complex nitty-gritty regulatory policies, but for somebody to say, hey, my name is John, I live in Flagstaff, this is what solar means to me, please don't cut that benefit, that goes really far. So if any of you are interested in pushing back on the Corporation Commission about some of this, we would absolutely love to partner with you because it's a really big priority. And we've got some volunteer sign up forms later on. So this is, everybody in this co-op will be an APS customer. It's open to Flagstaff, Sedona, and some Coconino County. So for APS solar customers, they have 2 rate plans to choose from. Both of them are time of use. So you can see that there's a range of electricity because it depends on the time of day, but also the time of year. So these on-peak energy charges and these off-peak energy charges, that's what APS is charging you for electricity that you buy from them. The plan on the right has a demand charge, and that refers to a single monthly charge you get for the most amount of electricity that you're consuming during peak hours. And that's a flat rate, usually up to a certain amount of electricity generation. That solar export rate, that 7.62 cents, that's what APS pays you for any excess solar generation that you feed back to the grid. There are some various monthly fees and flat fees that unfortunately are unavoidable. Typically, most people in APS territory who install solar tend to go for the simpler plan on the left without the demand charge, because even though the price of electricity is more expensive, you're avoiding this costly demand charge, and it's really hard for solar to offset that. So even if you're experiencing a little bit higher electricity between 4 and 7 p.m., your solar hopefully is generating most electricity you need anyway, and so that's offsetting from APS. Definitely the demand charge can work for people, just kind of depends on your situation and how and when you use electricity, but generally we tend to see people go for that plan on the left. This is a very oversimplified version of what your APS bill might look like, but just to give folks a rough idea of how this is all calculated. So similarly today, if you're on a time of use plan, you'll see a charge for on-peak energy used, that's between 4 and 7 p.m. You'll see a charge for off-peak energy used, that's outside of those hours. And now in the winter, you might have super off-peak, which is really nice. You'll have some various monthly fixed charges and taxes that you'll see on your bill. And then you'll see a credit. That's for however much electricity you generated that you didn't use, that APS is crediting on your bill, which for this example is just a net amount of $86. These numbers are pretty random. It's just to give you all a rough idea of how APS calculates this all. Yeah.
You have about 700 in consumption and 600 in generation.
Yeah.
Is there any economics between the battery and
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a question about batteries and if they can kind of if they're economical and how those work with this. So first, I will say batteries are still very expensive. They've come down in cost just like solar panels have, but they're still a decent amount of money to install a battery. Typically, most people are using batteries for power when the grid goes down. So if the grid goes down, your solar panels shut off. If you want electricity from a non-generator, basically you have a battery. Historically, that's kind of been the main motivation for people. Disaster preparedness, maybe if they have medication they need. But with peak pricing, and especially as our utilities continue to increase our rates, batteries can be a helpful tool to help offset some of these costlier prices. So I'll just give you an example. One of our former co-op members from Phoenix, she bought a battery with her solar installation, and she programs that battery to kick on between 4 and 7 p.m. each day. So it's being charged with her solar system in the morning when she's not using much electricity. Then she's using solar for most of her electricity all day. Then if the sun's going down, those peak prices start kicking on, her battery is powering her home. And then at 7 p.m. it kicks off and then the prices are cheaper. So that helps her kind of avoid some of those more costly bills. I will say again, if you are trying to buy a battery to help you save money, it's going to be pretty tricky to do still just with the prices of batteries. But they can absolutely be a tool to help avoid some of these costlier peak prices. Great. So what makes a good site for solar? The orientation of your roof is going to be probably one of the most important things to consider here. Facing south is always going to be the best option for solar because that's where you're going to be able to get the most amount of sun exposure and generate the most amount of electricity. Facing west can also work really well, especially in the context of peak pricing. So if you think about it, if you have solar panels on the south side of your roof, you're going to be generating more electricity as the sun is setting, which, 4 to 7 p.m. usually for most of the year. So if you have solar on the west side of your roof, it can also help you offset some of those peak periods and help you save even more money. An east-facing roof can also work as well. Definitely don't recommend putting solar on the north side of your home. You want to make sure there's little to no shading that will impact your solar panels. If you have a really large tree or a structure in front of your roof, it's definitely something to take into account. Some folks do trim their trees before they install solar to get better generation, but just definitely something to keep in mind before you start your journey on solar. And then, like I mentioned, the solar panels are decent size and you need quite a few of them to put in together. So you'll need a decent amount of roof space on your home. It's okay if there are obstructions like AC units or heat pumps. Solar panel installers can design around them, but we need to have a decent amount of unobstructed roof space to work with. When you sign up for the co-op, the very first thing that we do at Sun is a satellite roof review. So we will look at your roof. We'll check out the orientation, if there's any major shading. We'll look at the unobstructed space on your roof. And this is a free pre-screen that we do just to help you all know, like, is solar even going to work on my property? And that happens right when you join the co-op or within a day after joining the co-op. All right, and you just jumped me to the gun. Now we're going to talk about batteries. So important to let you know that if the grid goes down, your solar panels shut off automatically. And this is a safety mechanism built into the inverters. And the reason is if there is a downed power line somewhere on a highway because of a storm, let's say, APS is sending utility workers out there to fix the line. They don't want any spare electrons from your solar flowing through the lines, which could electrocute a power worker out working on those. So your inverter is going to shut your solar off if the grid goes down. So if you do want power and you don't want a diesel generator, you may want to look into battery storage. Like I was saying, some of the main reasons people are considering battery storage today, if they experience frequent utility outages, people who need to pump critical loads at home, think like a well pump, if they have medication or other medical equipment that they'd be in trouble without, a battery can really help that peace of mind. General emergency, disaster preparedness, resiliency is a word we hear a lot when we're talking about batteries. And then, like I was saying, more and more people are using their batteries to help offset some of those peak pricing. This is Amy, who I was mentioning. She went solar with us last year in Phoenix, and she really enjoys using her battery for that purpose. Again, I would just encourage folks to think about what your motivation is. If you want battery storage, if your only reason is to save money, it might not be the best option, but we would love to talk that through with you to help you figure out what the best choice is moving forward. If you want to dig into more of the details, we've got a great free guide on our website, solarunitedneighbors.org/storage. Goes into a lot more detail than I would be able to tonight. If you also want to shoot me an email, I'll be happy to send you this guide as well. So here's a sample case. I kind of gave you one with Amy, but here's another test case. So the Johnsons, they lose several times a year. Each time the power's out for an entire day, pain. So they have 0.5 kilowatt hour banked. That's fully charged solar system each day. And if the sun isn't shining, they got about a day's power with that battery. That battery will run their refrigerator, their microwave, some lights and outlets, a cable modem, a small window air conditioner, but it's not going to have the juice to run their stove or their dryer or a full size like air system for a home. Just doesn't have enough juice, really, is the best word for that. Any other questions about batteries? So most frequently asked questions that I get, sorry guys, this Zoom banner is really annoying. Warranties is the first one. So typical solar installation is going to come with 3 different types of warranties. There will be a power production warranty, which is a warranty from the solar panel manufacturer, which says that by year 25, the solar panels are still going to be producing a certain amount of electricity that they were on year 1. So for example, we might see like an 89% 25-year power production warranty. That means that by year 25, those panels are going to be producing at least 89% of what they did on day 1, because solar panels do degrade a bit over time. You're also going to have a parts warranty that will cover the panels, the inverters, the racking system, any other physical materials. And those can range, but we usually see between 10 and 25 years for most parts warranties. And then a labor warranty as the third one, that'll cover any sort of roof penetration or work done by the actual installer itself. Those are also going to range depending on the company, but I usually see between 10 and 15 years for most labor warranties, sometimes 20 years. Homeowners insurance, when you add solar to your roof, it's always a good idea to let your homeowners insurance company know. Most people don't see an increase at all. If you do, I would definitely ask why, and it may be worth shopping around for a different company. Most homeowners insurance companies actually consider solar panels an asset to your home because they do provide a degree of physical protection on your roof against hail and rain and other environmental factors. So many companies actually consider them an asset as opposed to a liability. And then maintenance, one of the great things about solar panels is they're pretty low maintenance. They're not no maintenance, but they're very low maintenance. Normal precipitation is going to keep them clean. If there's a really significant dust storm like we get down in the valley quite a bit, it may be worth hosing them off or calling a cleaning company. We don't recommend hosing them off for your personal safety. I forgot I was asked to say that in the future. Call a cleaning company if you want to get your panels cleaned. But that's going to make sure that they're still generating the most amount of electricity as possible. If they're really caked in dust and dirt, it's going to affect how much they will produce. But like I said, normal rain and snow is going to keep them clean. It's always a good idea to have a visual inspection done every few years, just to make sure that the panels are still working as they should and that there's no issues with them. Most, if not all, inverters come with an app for your smartphone or tablet, so you can track in real time how much electricity those solar panels are producing. And that's really helpful because if a panel goes out or it's having an issue, it will let you know. And that's something you want to know so that you're not paying higher electricity bills than you need to. And then how long do solar panels last? Solar panels last quite a long time. Like I said, most of the warranties are for 25 years, but they'll last longer than that if they're taken care of. I've seen panels on roof for 35, even 40 years that are still generating electricity. Like I said, they are going to degrade over time, so they won't generate as much electricity. But if you take care of them, they'll last well beyond 25 years. Warranties are pretty much going to stop at 25 years, though. And then HOAs or homeowners associations, something we get a lot of questions about. Thankfully, in Arizona, we have a law in the books that says homeowners associations cannot stop you from installing solar panels. They are allowed to put in some review process, like a design review board, for example. But there's actually an appeals court decision a few years ago that ruled they cannot outright stop you from installing solar panels. And then if you are in a historic district, I'm always just going to say, check your historic district guidelines. They vary so much from city to city. And many of them will have some restrictions, like, for example, the solar panels can't be visible from the streets, but if they're kind of on the backyard, that's okay. But again, those rules are going to vary depending on the district. So always encourage you to check into that first to make sure you're not jeopardizing any sort of tax status you have if you live in a historic district. All right, so that got us through solar technology. I'm going to pause quick for a quick water break. Does anybody have any questions about solar technology?
Adrian, do you have any anecdotal advice about navigating HOAs?
Yeah, there's a question from Zoom. Do I have any anecdotal advice about navigating HOAs? So yes, we have this great law in the books in Arizona. Court has upheld it. That doesn't mean HOAs like it. And for whatever reason, there are a number of HOAs in Arizona that just don't like solar. I don't know what it is. I think it's purely aesthetic for them. So I have been reached out to multiple times by people who say, hey, I want to go solar. My HOA is blocking me. What can I do? And Sun is really a great resource for you. I would love to go to bat for you and talk to your HOA for you. There's been times where I've called incessantly in HOA. I've sent emails. Sun as an organization, one time we even hired an attorney just to send a letter with some letterhead saying like, hey, this is the law as it is on the books. You cannot violate the law, and that's usually enough. Sometimes just like going down and talking to them in person. But these are all the things that like Sun would love to work with you. We're not going to let somebody stop you from installing solar if you're legally allowed to. We've got a variety of resources on our website as well about how to fight back against HOAs, since there are several states where we also run into similar situations. I haven't run into any of these issues in Northern Arizona. HOAs either, I don't know, we haven't run into any issues really up here, mostly in Tucson, it seems like. So I don't know if they're more picky down there or what, but if any of you do sign up for the co-op and you run into a problem with your HOA, myself and or the installer who gets chosen would love to go to bat for you.
Can you speak to the impact of snow in solar?
Of snow? Yeah, absolutely. So for the Zoom folks, the question was impacts of snow on solar. I'm gonna be totally honest, Derek, would you mind tagging in for this question? Because I don't have the Northern Arizona expertise that I think I do for this.
I work at Solar. We're a local solar company. So on the snow side, basically the biggest thing that we have to check is there's engineering that has to take place because we're at such a high level. Even all the way down to Prescott, Sedona, and the different level of land. So there has to be specific engineering just for the loads. As far as production though, every time that anyone who comes out and does site analysis and gives you a proposal, it should take into account how much the snow is going to impact your production. So it shouldn't, when you see the proposal, it should be very real to what it's actually going to produce. So it takes into account 86001, 86004, and how much snow we get on average. So the nice thing is, since it's on a south facing roof, the sun's going to hit that immediately. It's going to melt. That's going to be the first part. And as soon as one little part of that solar panel does get the sun, it's going to start producing energy. It's going to melt much quicker. So it doesn't impact it a ton, but in the winter, here in Northern Arizona, you get about 40% more energy in the middle of the summer than you do in the middle of the winter. So that's how much it's going to get. But all of our tools, anybody who comes out and gives you a proposal, that should be accounted for. You should never worry about it. So when you get the final number of like what your solar is going to produce, should account for it.
And typically no extra maintenance for it to see a little bit of loss.
Yeah, I mean, like last winter, maybe a different story. Like if you can get up there with a little bit of solar range or something, same with your roof, you can get it cleared off. But as soon as you get just a little bit cleared off, so you can get just the bottom, even that bottom panel, it's going to melt very quickly. So that's the nice thing about solar. It's on the south side. It's all designed to get the most sun. So it's been awesome.
That's 40% difference in snow.
Well, most of it is.
We're answering a question about snow.
It's how short the days are comparatively to snow. So days are that much longer in the summer, so you're gonna have so I would say 10% of that is probably. You'll see like when you do the analysis, even in July here, there's a dip in production, even though the days are longer because the monsoons. So you see that accounted for.
Thank you for letting me put you on the spot. I thought I was going to try to work my way through that, but I felt like you could answer a little more succinctly. Trinity, are there any other questions from the Zoom folks I need to answer? All right, hear none. Now we move on to solar economics. All right, this is the exciting part. So solar really is increasingly affordable as costs have come down, not only just in the past 40 years, costs have fallen dramatically, but even in the past 10 years, we've seen quite a substantial drop in the cost of solar panels themselves. This graph is the price per watt of solar panels from the 70s until today. Obviously, isn't an exact science as there are no numbers on here, but kind of gives you a sense of really the staggering decrease in costs that we're seeing now, as opposed to when Jimmy Carter put those first solar panels up on the White House. This is no longer just a specialty or boutique project that only the very wealthiest families can afford. Even with the issues with Arizona's policy, it still does have an excellent return on investment. And the 30% solar tax credit from the feds helps that go even further. And this is kind of breaking down the cost of why solar still costs what it does today. So I'll preface this by saying every solar installer organizes themselves a little differently. Each company is a little differently, but these are the general trends we see across the US. So down on the bottom in that kind of yellowish green, those are the cost of system components. You can see those have fallen quite a bit in the past 10 to 15 years. Kind of hard to see here, but there's a little green sliver line, and this is labor costs. Also fallen a bit, but have remained relatively stable over the years. This big kind of red orange bar at the top refers to soft costs. And this is anything other than the physical components associated with solar panels. The biggest cost here is marketing. So rooftop solar, especially in Arizona, is extremely competitive industry. And what we found is there are some installers who are spending thousands of dollars per customer to identify per customer. And that is an extreme cost for them in order to market and find customers in order to sell solar for them. At Solar United Neighbors, what we do is we group together 50, 100, 150 people. We educate them about solar. We check out their roof first. We make sure they're ready. And then the installer who wins the contract, we hand over those leads to them. They're able to save a ton on marketing costs and are able to pass on those savings to you. So this is kind of part of the reason why going solar in the co-op is more affordable generally than going solar on your own. It's because the installer doesn't have to work so hard and pay so much just to get all of those leads that otherwise they would have had to. And I will say, so Sun, we charge the installer $600 per signed contract that they end up getting from us. That helps recoup our costs to run the program. And we've been told time and time again that that is a real bargain. Most solar installers are paying a lot more than that per lead. So thanks to the Inflation Reduction Act, the federal solar tax credit has been extended and expanded to the full 30% for the next 10 years. Yay, we're very excited about this. This is a huge win. So if the Inflation Reduction Act had not passed, this tax credit would have dropped to 26%, then 22%, then I think 10%, then 0. We got it back up to the full 30% and it won't drop down again until 2033. So this is a massive incentive that is already helping tons of people go solar that if this law had not passed, we would be in a very tricky situation right now. It's important to note that this is a federal tax credit. So you need to have federal tax liability in order to claim this. If you don't make federal income or you make very little income that you don't pay taxes, this isn't refundable. So you won't be able to get just claim it as cash. You have to have tax liability. But if you don't make enough to claim the full credit in 1 year, you can roll it over to multiple years, which can help offset your tax liability for multiple years, which can be really nice.
Is there an Arizona tax credit?
There is an Arizona tax credit. I'm so glad you asked. The state of Arizona offers a 25% state tax credit. It's capped at $1,000 though. So vast majority of people are just able to claim the $1,000. I don't even know why they bothered calling it a 25% tax credit since like it's always $1,000 for most people. In the state of Arizona, we also have a law in the books that says if installing solar increases your property value, which it almost always does, it cannot increase your property tax liability. And that's enforced by each county assessor's office. So it's kind of a cool like hidden incentive that you don't have to pay extra taxes for any property valuation that solar panels bring. And we don't pay sales taxes on solar panels here in Arizona, thankfully. With the Inflation Reduction Act at Sun, we're definitely laser focused on the solar pieces in that law, and there are many in them. But there's a couple other pieces of the law that may be beneficial to folks in this room. There are a variety of tax credits and rebates available for an electrical panel upgrade, electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging for your home, electric heat pumps, battery storage, electric stoves. So if you have a heat system that's going out and you're thinking about replacing it anyway, it might be worth looking into getting an electric version that you could help get some of that paid for. Additionally, I would say if you're thinking about getting an electric vehicle, if you're thinking about transitioning to a heat stove or a heat pump or an electric stove, that's a really good thing to let your solar installer know, because that's going to affect how much electricity you consume the next year. And if you're planning to electrify a whole bunch of appliances in your home, you may want to get a slightly larger solar system, and both Sun or your solar installer would be happy to kind of help you walk through that. By the way, this is not an exhaustive list. This is kind of the things that are most relevant to homeowners. The Inflation Reduction Act is massive. We have a whole page on our website if you're curious about it. Like I said, the main thing that is affecting solar owners is the 30% tax credit. But worth checking out these rebates and tax credits if you're looking into that as well.
So that's just 2023, but the likelihood of having your system installed by the end of the year does not necessarily apply.
Yes. So, and I'm really glad you asked that, because there's an important distinction here. So there are tax credits and there are rebates available. The rebates are administered through each state energy office. Our state energy office, the Office of Resiliency, is currently setting up this rebate program. So if you buy a heat stove today, you won't be able to get that rebate. We're hoping that'll be available by spring of next year. But yes, so if you, I'm sorry, what was your question again?
That's all right. If it applied for 2023.
Yes.
But the possibility of having a system installed and done by the end of 2023, does that apply?
I gotcha. Yeah. So so these tax credits rebates became available in 2023, but they're available for years down the road.
Okay.
Yes.
I was just gonna say, in the city of Flagstaff, the electric vehicle rates, they have like additional discounts, so if you're in the city of Flagstaff, please, I don't know if Sedona has these or not, but like super good, additional rebate that we get, so you can get that, like just something in the city.
And I just to add on to that, so in addition to the electrical panel upgrade, there's also rebates for different electric appliances in your home, and weatherization if you're doing that. But that doesn't apply to the family. Correct, yeah, if you apply that residence for that, right?
For folks on Zoom, if you live in the city of Flagstaff, they also have some incentives for electric panel upgrades and some rebates for some of these other technologies as well. So if you live in Flagstaff, definitely check that out. All right, so at this point in the presentation, people are usually asking themselves, but what does it cost? So I can't give you a super solid answer to that question, because every co-op is a unique program. We have a separate bidding round for every single co-op. And so the prices that we get are going to depend on what installers bid. We just sent out the RFP for this co-op a couple days ago, so we're getting those bids in now. We picked $3 a watt here as just kind of a nice even round number, but that's honestly a little bit higher than we tend to see for most of our co-ops, but just to give you all a rough sense of cost. So we've broken this down by a 4 kilowatt system and a 7.5 kilowatt system. Like I said, the average system size in Arizona is usually between 7 and 8 kilowatts. So you have your cost right here of the system itself. The 30% tax credit's going to take 30% off, take $1,000 off from the state. So you'll be left with a net cost of about $7,500 for a smaller 4 kilowatt system, almost $15,000 for a larger, more average standard system. But what's really exciting is we have a really great modeling team at Sun who looks at APS data, looks at any planned rate increases in the future, and estimates how much electricity you will save in year 1, year 10, and year 25. I believe this number is a typo because there's no way that could be 7,810. I believe that's 1,000. That might just be 810. So ignore that. The rest of the numbers are definitely accurate though. So for example, with this 7.5 kilowatt system, after year 1, you're probably going to save roughly about $1,300. That's money that would have been going into APS's pocket. Year 10, you're saving more than $14,000, and after the lifespan of your system, you're saving significantly. after 25 years, in fact, you're profiting because of so much savings in electric bills. Yeah.
So do you guys, for all the tax credits, do you guys help with the co-op members claim those credits, or is it kind of up to the household to do that on their tax season?
Yeah, so the question was during tax season, can Sun help apply these tax credits? No, we don't have any accountants on staff, so we don't really feel comfortable giving tax advice. We have a significant amount of education and resources, so I really see our role as giving people a toolbox and all the resources they need. But I'm not going to pretend to have the expertise of an accountant, and I would feel more comfortable if folks spoke with their accountant for those issues. But we will help as much as we can.
You have an average number of years of payback, or, you know, zero, or does it depend on the system itself?
Yeah, so question about payback period and how long does it take to break even? So obviously it's going to depend on the size of your system, how much electricity you consume, and any future rate increases by APS. With this example, again, with this pricing, with a 7.5 kilowatt system, it costs $14,750. You're coming really close to breaking even at about year 10. Around 8 to 10 years is about typically what we see for most APS customers. If you're getting a really large system, it might be a little less than that, it might be a little more than that, but that's typically what we see. Also, we have handouts of this with the correct figures on here at the table here if you want one of those when you head out. All right, so to talk a little bit about financing, the first thing first is you have options when it comes to financing. Obviously, if you're able to pay cash up front, that's going to be the highest upfront cost, but will maximize your savings in the long run. Most people aren't able to afford that upfront cost and so are looking into loans. I'll talk about loans on the next slide. Third-party ownership refers to power purchase agreements or leases. These are scenarios in which a third party, often the installer, but it can be any company, owns the solar panels on your roof, and then you're buying the electricity that they produce at a set rate that is set usually for 10 years. Leases used to be especially popular 10, 15 years ago when solar panels were still a lot more expensive than they were today, because it was one way for people to be able to afford purchasing that electricity without buying the system itself. Nowadays, as the cost of solar has come down so much, we generally tell people if you can't afford the cost of the system up front, look into financing it as opposed to leasing. A, the savings are usually better in the long run. B, there are some bad actors, unfortunately, in the solar market that have sold leases and PPAs that are very bad terms. It ends up costing the customers even more in the long run. And C, a leasing or power purchase agreement can make it really complicated if you're selling your home. So for these reasons, we generally encourage people to try to finance to own the system if they can. But power purchase agreements are still an option nonetheless. And then, yeah.
With a third party, you still get that, right?
No. So I'm actually really glad you asked that question. So if you enter into a third-party ownership agreement, you, the homeowner, will not be able to get the tax credit. But let's say you are a retiree who doesn't have any income right now, so you wouldn't be able to claim that tax credit anyway. A company who does have taxable income will own the system on your roof. They can claim the 30% tax credit and then pass some of those savings on to you, hopefully in the form of a very good lease or power purchase agreement. So this can be kind of an option for people who can't get that tax credit because they don't have any income to get some sort of benefit. The devil is in the details, though. If you're looking into a lease or PPA, please send it to us. We would love to check it out for you. Unfortunately, there have been situations where people enter into a very poor lease agreement that escalates over time, and then they're paying more for electricity than if they just done nothing at all. And that's counter to the whole point of going solar. So leasing can work. It can be a great option, but we really want to make sure that it is the best terms for you. One grant that we like to highlight, especially in Coconino County, is the Rural Energy for America program, or REAP for short. REAP is administered by the Department of Agriculture and applies to small businesses and rural small businesses and farmers. So if you are a rural small business or a farmer, you can get up to 50% of your solar panels paid for by USDA. It's a really, really cool program. Sun actually just got some money to do technical grant assistance. So if you have a friend who owns a business in the area, we would love to help them get a REAP grant to pay for more than half the cost of those solar panels. By the way, also a program that came from the Inflation Reduction Act. It used to be 20%, now it's 50% thanks to the IRA. Yes.
Does that apply to small businesses in urban areas like Flagstaff?
Yeah, so for REAP eligibility, it's rural small businesses or farms. So the farms can be anywhere, it can be an urban farm, but if it's a small business in an urban area, that does not qualify.
Yeah. Just for a little specification on that, just outside of Flagstaff, almost everything outside of Flagstaff does qualify. So, Prescott, Sedona, all of those places do qualify. But yeah, Flagstaff proper does not.
Yeah, if anybody's interested in that, I'd be happy to send out a map that shows all the eligible areas in Arizona. So the important thing to know with loans is that there are multiple options available for you. You can go through the solar installer. Most solar installers, frankly, all solar installers that I've worked with have a preferred financing company that they work with. So it's similar to shopping for a car, right? You can get a loan from your bank and finance it that way, or you can finance through the dealership themselves. They'll probably have some preferred financer. But it's important for you to know that you don't have to finance through the installer. You can check out your local credit union, your bank. Many do offer solar loans. I'm definitely not going to recommend a home equity line of credit or refinancing right now. 5 years ago, that was probably the most popular way for people to finance solar. But with interest rates, please don't do that. Probably not going to be the best option for you. Like I mentioned, most installers have financing companies in-house, and the vast majority of these are really good companies. They make it really easy and simple, and for the most part have good terms. It's going to depend on your credit score and a variety of other factors, but just because it is in-house through the installer doesn't mean it's a bad way to go. If your local credit union does not offer solar loans, but you'd like to go that way, the Clean Energy Credit Union and the Community First Credit Union are national credit unions that if you join the co-op, you are eligible to join as well. And they offer solar loans for most solar installers. Awesome. All right. Any questions about solar economics, financing, or tax credits? Yeah.
How does it work with off-grid systems? Are those still included with the co-op or?
Yeah, so there's a question about off-grid systems. So the geographic parameters of this co-op, first of all, they're not super hard and fast. Generally, it's Flagstaff, Sedona, and Coconino County is what we tell people. Rural Coconino County. If you're just outside of Sedona in the Yavapai County side, that's more than fine as well. But there are like some rural folks who join the co-op and are interested in an off-grid system, which just means they're not tied to their utility at all. So they'll have solar panels and generator, or maybe a battery, and they don't have to deal with their utility at all. I'm not sure how it works in Flagstaff. In some cities, that's not allowed. If you live in city limits, you have to have connection to the utility. But for most rural areas, an off-grid system is an option. So we're going to ask any installer who bids on the co-op as much information as we can. And we'll ask about ground-mounted systems. We'll ask about off-grid systems. And if there's any additional costs that our members need to know. We've had several members do ground-mounted systems through our co-ops before. Off-grid is a little rare just because you usually like you're pretty remote if you're getting an off-grid system, but we have had a couple people in the Quad Cities co-op do off-grid systems and it worked really well. So we would ask up front the installer if there's any price differences, but if not, and they're able to do that, then certainly an option.
Does it ever make sense to install half of the total number of panels that you ultimately can plug into the current installation?
Yeah, so a question, would it ever make sense to install half the panels first and then maybe half later down the road? Money-wise, probably not. So with rooftop solar, there's a variety of fixed costs and labor costs associated. Your solar installer has to do design work. They may be out to your home to do inspections. There's going to be an engineering team to design the system itself. And then there are some other fixed costs associated with the utility. So you're paying for a lot of that included in your solar panels already. And so kind of doing that 2 separate times, in other words, would probably not be the most cost-effective option. However, we have seen a lot of people install just kind of a standard solar array and then 2 or 3 years down the road, they add some additional panels to it. That's certainly an option. But I wouldn't necessarily recommend planning to install half now and half later, just because of a lot of the fix and labor costs associated with installation is probably just going to make that more expensive. And the solar installer is probably not going to love that either. Anything to add, Jared?
The biggest thing is like, when EPS is scheduled, you can only add on basically 2 more panels.
That's right.
Before you lose your grandfather limit. So if you sign up now, every year APS tries to increase that rate by 10%. So if you wanted to in 5 years from now, it'd be like 10% or something like that. And you would have to sign up again, so you would lose your grandfather. So really up to a whole lot, which is essentially 2 panels now. So that's the biggest reason. There's all this stuff costs that we don't want to lose that grandfather rate that you have to take. So, yeah.
That's a really good point. Trinity, anybody on Zoom, any questions to answer out loud?
Yeah, is APS requiring a smart meter to go solar? And if so, is there any way to get around that?
Does APS require a smart meter to go solar? Yes. A smart meter meaning bidirectional. Okay. Yeah. So anybody who goes solar with APS will need a bidirectional utility meters, but aren't those standard now anyway?
They are, but yeah, they are. Some people are adverse to those.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
If somebody really didn't want that and they want to go solar, is there any way to get around that?
Maybe.
Sorry, I think the device or style.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as I know, there's not a way around it, but maybe there's.
Trini, in case you didn't hear that, probably not really a good way to get around a bidirectional utility meter for APS. If the person's worried about electromagnetic rays, there are some devices you can put over the meter, which I did not know about, so that's good to know. But you really kind of need to have that bidirectional meter in order to install solar with APS. Any other questions from the folks online? All right. Awesome. This is our shortest section, just a couple slides, and then we'll wrap things up. So, Solar United Neighbors, we have run almost 400 solar co-ops now in the US, and it's really become a pretty well-oiled machine that we consistently see positive results from. Some of the benefits of going solar through the co-op is, first, we aggregate lots of consumers together. So everybody goes solar at a similar time, and through economies of scale are able to save money on that installation. That alone is a really big reason to join the co-op. This helps you save money on your installation since the group is getting a bulk deal. But we, meaning Sun, also help support you throughout the entire process. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit, not a sales org. We help you with free education, free technical guidance. If you're curious about how much solar you need, we'll look at your utility bills and give you an estimate. You're interested in how long it will take to pay back your system, we can check that out for you. And these are all services that we offer for free. I understand that going solar can be a really complicated and daunting process. Our aim here is to equip you all with all the tools and resources you need to feel comfortable in that decision and not feel like you're getting pressured by a sales pitch. If you join the co-op, we'll also connect you with fellow solar enthusiasts who are passionate about solar and are interested in joining to fight back for solar rights. And you can become part of a growing movement that has an even larger impact on solar nationwide. And like I said, if you're interested in volunteering on some of the policy stuff, if you're interested in helping us with events like this, we would love to have you. The entire co-op process, usually somewhere between 1 to 6 months, depending on the timing of installation, which can take a little bit of time. You are on step 1, you're here, you're learning something, hopefully, from this solar information session. If you've liked what you heard tonight, I hope that you'll sign up and for the co-op. It is free to join the co-op and not a commitment to go solar. So if you sign the co-op and a few months down the road, it's not feeling right for you, you can back out without any penalty. If you do join the co-op, though, I hope that you'll share the opportunity with your friends, your neighbors, your coworkers, anybody who doesn't like paying their electric bill. We have a goal of 150 for this co-op. We're closing on about 40 right now. And the co-op's open till January. So if you do join, I hope that you'll share the opportunity with folks in your network. Step 4 is really important because that is the installer selection phase. At Sun, we think it's really important that the people who are going solar and are going to be spending their money are the ones selecting an installer, not us. So once the co-op has roughly 30 members, which we just hit, we will issue a request for proposal and invite solar installers to bid on the group. Solar installers are going to bid a base price per watt for the co-op. They're able to offer additional offerings. They will offer battery storage, home electric vehicle charging. Like I mentioned, we ask a lot of questions going into it. How much does an electric panel upgrade cost? What about off-grid, ground mounted? So we have as much information as possible. Then one evening, whoever in the co-op volunteers will form what we call a selection committee. We'll go over all of the bids and help the folks understand the differences in each company. We'll provide as much guidance as possible, but at the end of the night, it's up to the members of the group to vote and select an installer on behalf of the group. Once that co-op's installer is selected, they'll start reaching out to members of the co-op right away to design a customized proposal for your roof with the negotiated co-op pricing. So the pricing, like I said, mostly refers to the per watt amount. And so you'll have a custom proposal that fits your home, but with the negotiated co-op rate. This co-op ends on January 12th. So there's a hard deadline to join, after which we want to start any new folks. And the pricing is only applicable to people who are already in the co-op before then. At this point, we hope that you feel really confident that you've been well educated and advised, that you've got financing lined up and you're feeling excited. And you'll go ahead and sign the contract with the installer to go solar. Like I said, if you don't want to or you can't for any reason at all, that's fine. No penalty, no hard feelings. The installation process itself, like the actual day of installation, is very quick. It's usually only a day, maybe a day and a half at most. But after you sign a contract, like I mentioned, the solar installer is going to be checking out your roof. There'll be some design process, some engineering process. They have to get permitting from your city or county. And then there's also an interconnection process with your utility. So the day itself of installation is very quick usually, but from start to finish, it can be a several-month process depending on your situation. And then step 8 is party to celebrate. So like I said, at 7 p.m., we've got some folks from last 2 years coming. That's kind of their step 8, if you will. We're going to be just doing a quick trivia game and talking and chatting and celebrating the impact that we're able to have in the area. So like I said, the co-op is open now. If you're interested in joining, you can scan the QR code. You can sign up on my colleague Julio's laptop back here, or you can sign up at home online. Co-op is free to join and not a commitment to go solar. If you do join, please share it with a friend, a neighbor, a coworker. That would be fantastic. Yeah.
Question about that.
Sure.
Sorry, from earlier, in my return to see this balance out in around 10 years. Does that include if you have a TV electric vehicle setup?
Meaning like you're consuming more electricity. Oh, no, that exactly was not including an electric vehicle. Yeah, so if you're looking at total, costs associated with transportation and electricity, if you have an electric vehicle that you're charging at home with solar, your transportation costs are going to be very, very low. That did not factor in any of the transportation side of things, but you're absolutely right. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
That's a reminder that $2 kilowatt for a bike.
Yes, yes.
So that payback is probably not.
Thank you. Yeah. That $3 a watt is a little high. Yeah. Right. I'm gonna see how we're doing for time. I'm gonna skip past these since we're already at 7 o'clock. These are just some people who have really nice things to say about Sun. Like I said, if you're interested in volunteering, we use volunteers for events like this, for policy campaigns. Sometimes we get media requests for reporters who want to talk to solar owners. You don't want to scan that right now. We've got some forms. We can talk to you about that later. I think that's it. Yeah, that is it. Okay. Our email is right there. Yeah. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, our email is right there. Both Julio and myself see that email. I've also got some business cards over on the table and would love to talk to you about anything solar. Yeah.
I just wanna say, the things that Sun Adrian specifically doing and like. Beautiful and protects all of us against rate increases, that sort of thing. It's really amazing. We participated, we won the co-op 2 years ago. We decided not to participate last year. But what Sun is doing is really great. The reason we didn't participate 2 years ago because we lowered the prices so much. We are gonna participate this year. So I think it is a good deal for you, because we want to compete, we want to keep things local. And they're doing a great job trying to make sure that everybody is treated fairly, well educated, and teaming up with the cities and flags out stuff and coding the balance. So highly recommended. We're gonna throw our hat in the ring. We have they have no association with us. We're just gonna participate and you all get to decide. So, but nothing but praise for the Solar United Games.
Thank you. Appreciate
Doing a
that.
great job in Arizona. And we all think solar is great. If it's not with us, going solar is amazing. So doing the right thing.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Awesome. We are gonna do a trivia game. No pressure to stay. We would love to have you. We got some prizes, maybe at like, let's say 7:30, so I can take a bathroom break. But otherwise, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it.